Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 63 of the Flip Screen Games podcast. I'm your host this week, Stephen Radford, and I'm joined by my wonderful friend, Max Wright.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was supposed to be Pete there for a second. I was going to...
You can be Pete if you want. I would love to hear your best Pete accent and impression.
I think I'd shatter all the windows in my house and wake everyone up.
Yeah, he's not the quietest of people, is he?
There's a reason he's locked in a basement whenever he's recording.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that he's down there and not annoying his wife.
Wife, yeah.
Yeah, his wife. So
congratulations.
If people are wondering where Pete is, he got married this week. So he jetted off on his honeymoon to Jamaica. And so Max is joining me for the first time, I think, on the Flip Screen Games podcast. I think you've been on Nintendo Noise, but I don't think you've been on Flip Screen.
I think you might be right. Yeah, I think we discussed Metro. We discussed the D-tier Nintendo Direct, and I think that's probably it.
Yeah, and you'll also be on our other show, the Steam Deck podcast as well, which will probably be out the same day this is. So if you want to hear more about what we're playing and Steam Deck news, then go listen to that as well. This week, we're going to be talking about some new games announced. Unreal Engine 5 stuff. Is Unreal Engine 5 the future of gaming? We're going to see more and more engines die away and become Unreal Engine games. Or will we keep seeing, I guess, developer-exclusive engines? The Red Engine's going away, seemingly going to Unreal Engine 5. And in other Unreal Engine 5 news, Silent Hill is back using it. So we're going to be talking about survival horror as well, what we think about it, our impressions of the Silent Hill stuff, the Resident Evil showcase, all of that good stuff. But before we get into that, I want to thank our Patreon producers for October. They are Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you very much for supporting us over at patreon.com/flipscreengames. So we've got a start screen, Max. If you've not listened to the show in a while, this is kind of a new segment. And we just do like a little question at the beginning. And this one this week comes from one of our Patreon producers, which is my dad. And he said, what's your favorite video game series? I'm not saying what mine is, but I bought the stamps. I'll see if I can bring the picture up. But he bought a set of stamps for Tomb Raider years ago. And I guess that he considers that his favorite video game franchise.
Oh, wow.
I think I know what your favorite video game franchise is.
I was about to say that you could probably answer this one for me.
It's Metroid, right?
It's definitely Metroid, yeah. How deep into this do you want me to go, Steve? Because I could go for a while.
I'd love to know why it's your favorite franchise, because I know it is your favorite, but I don't think I've ever spoken to you about how it became your favorite and the origin story of Max being the Metroid guy.
So I guess my first Metroid game was Metroid Fusion, which is more chance that I happened to be on holiday with an aunt of mine, and she didn't have kids at the time, and I think she always felt guilty for traveling and never sort of seeing us. So we just got good presents whenever we saw her. She bought me my first GameCube, my only GameCube, I guess. But this specific holiday, she took us to the game shop and was like, "Get whatever you want." And I saw this box and thought, "I know that from Super Smash Bros. That's the Robot Man." So I grabbed it and
the Robot Man from Smash Bros.
The Robot Man, you see, yeah, that's how you know it's best. My brother got Tasmanian Tiger on PS2 or whatever. But loaded the game, and I thought it was just sort of a side scroller, and then I sort of was like, oh, I can get items, I can go back to places, and like it was sort of like a maze, and it was more interesting. I think that sort of is generally what I like about games the most, is the whole sort of I like mystery, I like intrigue, I like finding things out for myself, that kind of thing.
We had a discussion about that on Nintendo Noise this week, because one of the points we spoke about was, does Nintendo just ruin games these days with their trailers? So they give away too much, and there is no mystery in things anymore. Like with Pokemon, every Pokemon you're going to find. There's no mystery and intrigue like when you were a kid.
Yeah, like every trailer has the same thing. I remember when Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out, and I think I was just... My dad must have bought me a copy of the Nintendo magazine. We never got magazines. It was a very rare thing. So I had this copy of the magazine. I was going through it, and I was like, oh my God, Sonic the Hedgehog's in this? And like all of the characters that must have been revealed, I don't know, during all sorts of magazines and all, like they must have done like E3s and stuff like that. If that was even around then, I don't even know. But yeah, that was very exciting for me to discover that there and then, especially when you're in the game and you unlock a character. Like, I didn't know they were in here, whereas that is now gone, right? You have directs and you have all sorts of things that show things off. Anyway, back to the so I played Metroid Fusion. I played it over and over and over again. Like, I became really good at that game. And then one day a friend came to me and was like, "Oh, you like that Metroid game, right? I need you to come around my house. I'm playing on my Wii. I didn't have a Wii at the time, and I'm stuck on this game. And I think you might be able to help me." And it was Metroid Prime 3. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is that game." And I was like, "Well, you can turn into a bull, right? So go in that hole," and that solved the whole problem from him. And I was like, "Oh, there's more Metroid games." And then sort of from there, I then picked up, Metroid Prime 2. It got a copy of Zero Mission sent down from Scotland to the local CEX. Like, I was doing a whole sort of trail for it. But yeah, that's sort of become, and since then I've discovered in the indie Metroidvanias, and
do you consider them on the same level as Metroid? Like, have any of those indie ones surpassed Metroid for you in terms of favorite franchises?
I would say no. I don't think as a franchise, but I think there are some of the indie Metroidvania games that have come out that have surpassed other Metroid games. Maybe not so much like Super Metroid in terms of everything that game does, the atmosphere, the level of mystery, just how little it tells you and how much there is to find. And I don't think any Metroid game has really surpassed that in that way. But there are, Hollow Knight, for example, is a big one. That's why now every time you see like a new sort of Metroidvania style game announced, not every time, but most of the time, it's like there's Hollow Knight in this. You can see Hollow Knight in this because that was the big one, and that sort of got everyone into it. I'm drawing a blank now. I've played about 50 of them on the Switch specifically, I think, and
there's like Hollow Knight, Ori, Axiom
Ori and the Blind
Verge.
Forest is a good one. Yeah, what I like about a lot of those is that they take the. So I always have this discussion with people where I don't think that to be a Metroidvania you need to like be a side scroller or have elements of Metroid. It just needs to be that you pick up an item. Let's say that's a key. And that opens a door. That door could be an actual door. It could be like an enemy you can now kill. It can be like an item, a jump you can now make that you can make before. I think any game that sort of has that sort of progression style is a Metroidvania. And I think a lot of them, like Ori, for example, didn't really have combat in the first one as much. You just press the button and a little sprite hits from out of nowhere. But it did have that sort of like, oh, I can now jump up higher. I can now climb this wall or wall jump and stuff like that. And yeah, I just think there's something about that really speaks to me as a gamer, and I think like Dark Souls does a similar thing, especially the first one where you're like, oh, this key opens that door, now I can go through here, and oh, there's like 4 different ways to go. Which way do I go now? Which I think a lot of that's been lost when you go open world with stuff like that, specifically like Elden Ring. It doesn't have that. While it has that, you can go anywhere, you can do anything, and there are still, oh, I found this item, I can go over here. It's not. You're not being fed through corridors and then that world slowly opens up as you go. It's like, here's an open world. There are doors within that world. But Metroid is very much, you can go from A to B, you pick up an item at B, suddenly C and D open up to you. And then, you go into C and suddenly E and F open up to you. And then the world sort of grows naturally as you power up.
So confusing though, because I have found myself get lost all the time. Carrion, I remember getting lost. I had to look up a walk on that.
Carrion is not a great example. Like I did enjoy it, but it's one of the things I like about Metroid games and all Metroidvanias really is that by the end of the game you've got every power up and you can just basically go back to earlier areas, find everything, every secret that was locked to you before. You go, oh, I remember going there. Cool, I'll go back there. And by the end of that, you can do that everywhere. You can kill everything. You're unstoppable. Whereas Carrion, by the time you get the last upgrade, there's nothing else to kill and there's nowhere else to go. You can't go back to places. There's no map. You don't really know where you're going.
Yeah, that's it. You'll break out.
Yeah. I think that the getting to there was good. Then as soon as it got to the point where it's like, cool, now you're super powerful, you can go and solve all the puzzles you couldn't solve before. You sort of leave, or you could go back. It's just because there was no map and there was no way of knowing where the 2 points connected or where the items were or whatever. There's just no point because you end up aimlessly walking around.
I mean, there's no point anyway, because once you've reached that stage, the only thing to do is to finish the game and
leave the game. Yeah, depends if you're a completionist, which is another reason I like these games is because there is definitive, like there are 100 items out here for you to find. There's a percentage. Each area has a percentage, or like a lot of the time, what the maps do is they say there's something in this room, you just haven't found it yet, and then you go into
Yeah,
that
I
room, and you're like,
liked that on
oh,
Dread,
where's that?
actually. Yeah, that was really, really useful on Dread, and it would drive you
Yeah.
crazy because sometimes you couldn't get it until you'd like got another power up later in the game or something, and like
Yeah.
you say you didn't know how to shine spark at this point, then you needed to come back later on. So sometimes they were impossible to get, and it used to drive me crazy that I couldn't like check off the room on the map, and there's literally no way to do it. But
I think there's other games like Ender Lilies that does that really well, where like there's something in that room because the color hasn't changed. It's just it doesn't tell you where it is or where it could possibly be. And I think Resident Evil Village does the same thing. I think a lot of the other older ones do, but Village
games
specifically.
Do it. Yeah, no, all of the remakes have done it. 2 and 3 did it as well.
Yeah, see, yeah, when I played through 3, I feel like because 3 was much more linear in that once you sort of leave an area, you couldn't go back. Whereas I really liked that Village had that element in it of like, well, now I have this crank, and I remember there being a thing to crank earlier, and now I've opened that. The room's gone blue. Cool. It's just a little like bing in my brain goes, yeah, that's not Resident Evil, that is blue.
But I do not like the design of Resident Evil 3. It's a cool story and a cool concept because like part of it takes place before Resident Evil 2, part of it takes place after Resident Evil 2, and you know that Resident Evil 2 and all that stuff that you did on the last game is kind of kicking off in the middle of it. But Nemesis just gets really annoying. The game's super short. There's no replayability, and it's just it's not as well designed as Resident Evil 2. Like the thought process that went into RE2, and the fact that there are unique campaigns depending on whether you play side A or side B is really, really cool. There was like
4 or 5 in the end, wasn't there? Like you played through both sides twice, and then you go through the final one, or maybe the fourth one has a sort of a final end, something like that. I can't remember. I played it a couple of years ago now. But yeah, 3 didn't have that for me. When I finished 3, I was like, I'm done. Whereas with 2, because of the 2 different characters,
you instantly start replaying it. You're like, well, I want to go to the orphanage. I want to see the other side of the story.
Yes. You're like, oh, what did Claire do during that portion of the game? Which is really good. And yes, yeah, I did. Oh yeah. He's on the box. He's the main character.
I always go Leon A, but you know that's just the way it's always been for me. I really should do a Claire A at some point because I never have done Claire A Leon B, which is a different ending. That's how you kind of get the 4 different endings. But I love that. I love those games. I think Resident Evil would be probably up there as one of my favorite franchises. But
really, what's your number 1 then? If that's up there.
It's really tough because it depends on the mood, and like there's games I get super excited about when there's new games released, and like the concept of like a new Fallout game for me is really exciting. I love those games.
Fallout.
Oh, I love Fallout. You should try it when the next gen, because they've announced a next gen version a version for for Xbox Series X. I don't know if it's coming to PS5. For Fallout 4.
I think it is. Yeah, I think they announced this for both. It's just sort of a next gen sort of upgrade, really, or a version, I guess, for both systems. I've tried to play 3 Fallout New Vegas and 4.
Okay. If you don't like any of them, you're not gonna like it.
I really wanted to. I modded them out the wazoo specifically New Vegas. Actually, I modded it a load to like make it look really nice, and then I made my character, and I was like, that was awful, and I hated that. Really hate picking stats in games because I've no idea what they mean.
I think Fallout 76 actually, and Fallout 4, I think did a pretty good job with it, with the special system, which they kind of brought back, which was in the original Fallout games. But it did go away for a while. Fallout 3 didn't do a particularly good job of it. I actually fell into that issue with Elden Ring. You're presented with like a wall of characters when you first boot the game up, and I'm just like, I don't know. I've never played a Souls game before. In your
initial discussion,
so
you thought you might have picked the wrong character.
Yeah, I picked the bandit, and like as much as I've like tweaked him to how I want to play, he's never going to be the right configuration for me because I want to play with a sword in one hand and a magic wand in another hand, and he's never going to be the right combination for that.
It took me beating Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne. Bloodborne and then Dark Souls 3 to realise what what's it called when you is it not proficiency weapon scaling. Took me 4 games to work out weapon scaling.
But it's super clear in Elden Ring. Like the weapon scaling system I hear has been revamped and that it shows you a lot more clearly. But
Yeah,
I also
when I
had
started
the
playing
help
Elden
of
Ring.
Twitch when I was playing, and like a lot of Souls experts popping in the chat because everyone's excited to see people playing a Souls game for the first time.
I had the I didn't have Twitch. I just had forcing myself through 3 Dark Souls games before and Bloodborne before Elden Ring came out. So
Yeah.
so Resident Evil is up there. You said Fallout's up there. Do you have like one that you said there are a lot of games that when anyone gets gets announced, you get excited? Are we talking like much older stuff or?
No, but like I am excited about the new Resident Evil games and like tuning in for that, and that always is exciting. The prospect of like a new Elder Scrolls is exciting. Those kind of games
Yeah.
are like Nintendo stuff excites me as well, but not to that extent. Like I don't have as much nostalgia with those because I grew up with the PlayStation rather than with Nintendo. Tomb Raider was up there, but it went away. So like I know it's
Your dad's gonna be disappointed.
yeah, I know it's my dad's favorite, but it lost its way. It's been passed around way too much. It's been owned by everyone at this point.
Yeah, it's sad that you're going to lose these stamps in your inheritance, though, Steve. I must say.
I know. Maybe he's not going to give them to me because I'll end up putting them on an envelope. You see.
I'll supposed to send, haven't you, Steve?
And another one of my favorite franchises actually got announced as coming to Xbox this week, which is Age of Empires. Have you ever played any Age of Empires games?
First off, lovely segue. Secondly, no. Honestly, if you said Age of Empires to me, I'd probably have 4 games in my head of what it could be, and I think they're all versions of Civilization or
it's close
Total
to
War
Civ,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like,
So Civ is like less real-time strategy, more turn-based strategy. Imagine that, but you're like zoomed in on the map and you're actually controlling the people and telling them what to do. Like it's like you're gonna go and cut some trees for me because I need wood, and you're gonna like mine gold, and you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that. So Age of Empires 2 is coming back to console.
Then.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I had Age of Empires 2 on the PlayStation 2. It was a port by Konami, of all companies. So
Who makes it?
It's a Microsoft game.
I see. Okay.
So it's coming to. I think it's probably going to be Relic that make the ports for the PlayStation, which is owned by Sega. But they do a lot of RTS games. They do the whole Total War series. But I love Age of Empires. Age of Empires and The Sims, what I spent a lot of my time on the computer playing when I was a kid.
Controlling people. So is Age of Empires, would you say that's up there as one of your favourites? Not to hop back to a previous segment? Okay, this is good news. So I'm looking at this, not to show you how the sausage is made, I'm looking at this document here, and there's 4 games listed here.
So it's 3 games. We've got Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, which is coming out in January 31st. Age of Empires 4 is coming in 2023, and then Age of Mythology, which I despise, but is in here because I know Pete likes it. I truly just think Age of Mythology was a scourge on the Age brand. They did it once and then they went straight back to Empires. It's all fantasy stuff. It's nonsense. I like the realism that came with Age of Empires, which was always rooted deeply in history. Like it's talking about. Yeah, it's like you get to recreate a lot of the scenarios, or you can just play straight in a deathmatch. It's really good fun. Whereas Age of Mythology is like, oh, what would happen if like Thor went against Hercules or whatever? And it's just like, I'm not there for that. But a lot of people are into it.
You must lose some of that, like if it's a really grounded game, to sort of suddenly add magic and stuff to it must sort of take you out of it in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
So these are
all
old games then, I assume.
Very old games. So. Age of Empires dates back to the 90s, along with Diablo. Diablo's up there as one of my favorite franchises as well. I'm very excited for Diablo 4. And they're very old games. They date back to the 90s on Ensemble Studios.
I specifically mean these 3 games here. None of these are new games technically. These are just like remasters. They're
all ports. So Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition has been on PC for a very long time. Age of Empires 4 came out this year, but it's coming to console next year for the first time. Age of Mythology, it's only coming to PC, no date announced, but that's just a remaster. It's Retold is their like naming for a remaster or remake, whatever they want to call it. So yeah, exciting
Learning a lot
stuff.
here, Steve. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
I'm sure I look
Yeah.
forward to hearing how excited you get by it.
Well, and you know, it's not the only remakes that have been announced this week as well, because we also got The Witcher remade. I don't know if you know much about The Witcher. It's not really a franchise I've ever really messed with. I know Pixel, when we were at Loot Pots, tried getting everyone to play The Witcher 3.
Well, I was going to say that I own The Witcher and The Witcher 2 on Steam, but I was going to say it dates back to Loot Pots, doesn't it? Where we were all discussing like, oh, you should play Witcher, you should play The Witcher, and I can't remember how many of us were just saying, no, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I was firmly in the never going to happen camp with that one. It's one of those games like I've tried to play 5 times. Every time I bounce off it because I don't know. I just I can't do it. However, I feel like this remake could be interesting, but I don't know. I don't know. The fact that they're, not to take your job here, but the fact that they're building it from the ground up, it's sort of being worked on by a studio that's supposed to be where the Witcher veterans are, but it's not necessarily specifically CD Projekt Red. The fact that it's built from the ground up means it's going to be more of a reboot or a retelling or a remake, I guess.
I think it has to be a remake. It's so old at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wonder if it's just going to be they're retelling the story in The Witcher 3, The Witcher 3, not engine, but the way The Witcher 3 is built, the way The Witcher 3 is. If they're just going to rebuild the sort of the story and the way that you move through that game in the same way that The Witcher 3 is, that might be interesting. I just I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got to imagine if this is a successful reboot, The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3 are probably not far behind in joining them in Unreal Engine 5. Yeah. It's being done by Fool's Theory, so it seems like it's a bunch of ex-CD Projekt Red people that worked on The Witcher, started up that studio. CD Projekt Red are going to be overseeing it. It's similar to kind of the situation, I guess, with like Naughty Dog and the remasters of Uncharted, and it being done on PC by Iron Galaxy, and I think it was Bluepoint did the remasters for PlayStation 4 for both Uncharted and for The Last of Us Remastered. Previously known as Canis Majoris. So they announced 3 Witcher games that were coming, or 2 Witcher games and a Cyberpunk game that were coming. This is obviously the Canis Majoris one. No idea when it's coming, but it's got to be a long way out. All we've got is a picture so far.
Yeah, especially if it's being made in Unreal Engine 5, so they can't have been working on it for a long time. It's not. I remember watching that video 2 years ago of not in developers and yeah, right. So it's obviously a work in progress. I think it's interesting that they announced it as Canis Majoris a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty sure it was, with all these new games, and then now they've
like, why not just come straight out and just say we're doing a Witcher remake? It was previously known as Canis Majoris or whatever, but. Yeah, I mean, I as excited as I am to finally see some Unreal Engine 5 games, it does give me pause because we're losing yet another engine, and we knew this. We knew that the CD Projekt Red were moving away from their Red engine that was built for The Witcher 3, or built for the Witcher and updated all the way up to The Witcher 3 in Cyberpunk. But it's a real shame. It was a really great engine and produced some beautiful games. Obviously, they had a lot of problems when it came to Cyberpunk, and I can imagine that would have contributed to the decision. But
yeah, I think so.
I can just see at some point it gets to a stage where it's either an Unreal Engine game or a Unity game, and we lose a lot of diversity in terms of engines and the way games are made and what people are doing in terms of pushing technology forward and pushing the boundaries. I mean, look at what Sony does. Every single one of their games is seemingly produced on a different engine. We've got Decima over there. We've got the engine that Naughty Dog uses, which is an in-house engine. There are some games that use Unreal Engine. I think God of War uses Unreal Engine. So they really are like, they just pick what fits best for them. And if Unreal Engine fits best for The Witcher, then fine. I do worry as to what it means for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when Nintendo announced that they were making, was it Yoshi's, not Woolly World, it was the, whatever the last one was. Right? Crafted World, yes, I think that's right, yeah. And that was announced as being an Unreal Engine 4 game. And I remember thinking, like, we've got all these. Nintendo have obviously worked on their own in-house engines for so long, and they know how those work, and they get the most out of their games on those engines. And I think it showed when Crafted World actually came out, and it didn't sort of look or run great on the Switch. And I think that was maybe a mistake for them to. Maybe I did just play the demo. Just want to say it might have actually been great on release, but I feel I played it,
I don't think it did look any different. But it was maybe it was an experiment. Like we just try it out on this this like small title that we're not. It's not really, the performance doesn't really matter because kids are playing it, and the easy mode is just like ridiculous.
And I think they wanted to do a lot to make it look almost realistic in a way where it's all real objects and crafted objects, and I'm not sure that really played out for them. It might be why we've not heard any, or they've not officially announced this game's Unreal Engine ever since. But yeah, I think you're right about it being a shame that we're going to lose these engines. But I do wonder if that's just because Unreal Engine is just doing it so much better. And you see games like people always complain that Fallout and Skyrim.
The creation engine is old. The creation engine is very, very old. But look at
people say, we need to update their engine. We need to update their engine.
I think we've got to wait and see what Starfield looks like for that, though, because that did seem like a big step up in I guess fidelity and performance from what they showed in the demos. But who knows? My big issue with the creation engine was the amount of bloom that was on everything. In Fallout, you turn on your Pip-Boy torch and everything would just glow. Like the whole world would just glow like it was radioactive. And I guess maybe in Fallout it is radioactive, but in Skyrim it's the same thing.
I do think that was a everything just looks shiny, doesn't it? And I don't think it should look like that. But I wonder if as these games, like you say, the jump from Skyrim to Starfield, they've already said like there's going to be loads more voice lines. It's going to be so massive, all this stuff. I wonder if, not specifically Starfield, but in general, games are getting so much bigger and they're putting so much more effort into certain things. We're already seeing new games come out that can only run at 30 FPS on the newer systems. And I wonder if these teams that are sort of already working and trying to produce these games, that they're not getting the full 60 FPS that you can get on some games. If it's just taking too much, it would take too much time for them to keep updating their engine alongside it. And if just having this ready-made tool, I mean, I'm sure as a developer that sometimes it's easier just to sort of like, someone's already done this for us.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
We just need to add on.
Yeah, updating your tooling is just like, who's going to want to do that? But I do think some of the best games I can think of the last few generations have been those engines that are in-house, like id Tech and Doom, and what they achieved with that was phenomenal last generation.
I mean, look at Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, anything running on the RE engine.
Anything out of Capcom looks insane. Like the like character models and like the animations that they can get out of that engine are just like it's next level.
The jump as well from Resident Evil 7 to Village. When you look at the characters' hair and the characters' faces, and specifically, what was the character's name? What was his wife's name? Mia? The jump from Mia between 7, even in the trailer, with when you start Village and it says previously, like here's the recap of Resident Evil 7, and you see Mia's face and hair, and then it jumps to 8, you're like, oh my god, they've improved this so much. And also it's scalable. The fact that you can get something like Resident Evil Village on PC and then Monster Hunter Rise on Switch, and they're both running on the same engine. They both run really well, and they're both like just very competent games.
And they've been able to add to it as well really easily, like adding in ray tracing features, which I know they've added to a bunch of the Resident Evil games. It's honestly super impressive, and I don't want to see that go away. I want to see those those engines continue. Now, can you imagine if like the next Forza Horizon is just like, we've decided to scrap the engine that we've built out, the whole custom thing. We're just going to use Unreal Engine 5 now, and we're going to do this. We're going to do the exact same thing for all of our games at Microsoft. It's just like, why would you do that? You've got so many like engines you can utilize. I don't know, but you could be right.
What this means for the Switch in some ways.
Oh yeah, there's no way Unreal Engine 5 runs on the Switch. Not a chance.
The fact that Nintendo had Unreal Engine 4 and Nintendo owns the hardware, they know exactly how it works, and Yoshi's Woolly World came out like it did. Obviously, it wasn't a travesty, but it was hardly look at Mario Odyssey compared to that, and the things that are going on, and yeah, I do worry that we're gonna, if we see, the more we see developers less using their custom engines that they know inside out, like our engine working so well on Switch. Are we going to start seeing games either produce worse Switch ports or just no Switch ports at all, which isn't a huge issue for someone like me, but there are people who, they wait for these Nier Automatas, they wait for these No Man's Skies, these recent Switch ports. They're just not going to get this anymore if they're having to scale down Unreal Engine 5 and everything that it can do onto a system that's just not built for it.
Yeah, I mean, the RE engine doesn't run on it. It does for Monster Hunter, but look at all the Resident Evil ports, they're just cloud versions.
No, you're right, but the games might not be scalable, but the engine's obviously scalable.
Yeah,
right?
the engine can be, but it has to be, the game has to be built for the Switch from the ground up, which obviously it was with Monster Hunter, but the Resident Evil games definitely weren't. They're not gonna run. Yeah. I think they probably could if they wanted to, but I managed to play Resident Evil 3 on my Steam Deck, and even that I could max out 720p. So like that engine, it's scalable, but they have to want the game to play on those systems.
Yeah.
The Unreal Engine 4 is not without its problems either, because even on the PC side of things, the micro stuttering you'll get from basically every Unreal Engine 4 game, the fact that there's no solution for shader pre-caching, that you'll just get like a blip if the developer hasn't pre-cached the game, is unacceptable, and we need, especially considering it's becoming the de facto standard engine. If Unreal Engine 5 is going to continue that trend of it being the standard engine, is the one that most developers reach for, the kind of AA or AAA that aren't building out their own engine, we need to see better solutions for those things and those problems going away. And I'm sure we will. What Epic has done with Unreal Engine 5 with Lumen and all the technology has been impressive so far.
Maybe we'll see that when we have every developer working specifically on Unreal Engine 5, that crowdsourcing of problem solving and what am I looking for here? Completely drawn a blank. Little improvements.
Yeah, you come up with solutions together, right? It's like, I can imagine they're all in like an Unreal Engine. Yeah, they're probably like in like an Unreal Engine Discord, like all sharing information about it.
Well, we hope so. That's in an ideal world, I guess. But what it could just be is they're buying a product off the shelf that works, and are then doing the rest of the stuff that's probably taking up so much time and money of theirs, just to save themselves some time that they desperately already need, especially with how impatient gamers are.
Yeah, that is a possibility.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, gamers have been very patient, Max, for Silent Hill. And eventually, Konami this year decided they wanted to make games. We saw Suikoden, right, making a comeback earlier this year. Now it's Silent Hill's turn. Kojima probably was like, slamming at the table when these trailers were going. It's like, how dare you steal my franchise from me? But we saw 3 projects from Konami, well, and other studios, but mainly Konami.
I mean, actually, just before you jump in there, Konami owns the IP, but it still feels like all of these games are by other. You do list of games, and I'll say this after because that makes more sense.
Yeah, so we've got there's 3 games coming, and you're right, they are all by different studios. So we've the first one, which is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and I've got the trailer up now for anyone watching over on YouTube. It's a real-time trailer, a real showcase of what Unreal Engine 5 can do. We see Lumen in action when he opens the door and the light floods in and reflects all around the room. It looks phenomenal. A complete remake, ground-up remake of Unreal Engine 5 by Bloober Team, which is the team behind the Medium and Layers of Fear. So the other two,
Witch as well. That was them, right?
Oh, maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not a massive Silent Hill guy. I was, like I said, I was into Resident Evil, but I remember playing the original Silent Hill games on PS1, and oh my god, this game looked good. I was very excited about it. The only thing that gave me pause was Bloober Team, because the Medium was not great.
Yeah, I didn't play it, but I did hear that was the general response. I've never played. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Actually, I'm not fun. I've never played a Silent Hill game before, and it's one of those franchises that I was always aware of Resident Evil because we had Resident Evil games, and it was one of those things that people talked about on TV. But all I knew about Silent Hill was the movie, really. But this looked really interesting, and it took me, because I've never played Silent Hill 2 before at all. I was very interested about what I was seeing because it felt new to me. I'm sure there were people that played Silent Hill 2 that were watching that going, oh, I remember that, I recognise that, I can't believe they've done that.
Yeah.
But for me, it just looked like a new game. However, that did also make it feel a bit like the story was a bit like retreading stuff to me. Like it felt like things I'd already seen, but that's because the game's 20 years old and they're probably doing what Silent Hill 2 did back in the day, whereas I've come into this years later.
And I think that's fine. You've got to strike a balance. Resident Evil 2 Remake did a really good balance with it. There's a lot of fan service stuff in there, but they freshened up the game and made it feel modern. It didn't feel stale. And it seems like that's what the goal with Silent Hill 2 Remake is as well. But that wasn't the only game they announced, but that was the one I think I was most impressed with because it was a real-time trailer. The other two were just cinematic trailers that we saw. So we saw a trailer for Silent Hill F, which is the first, I guess, sequel to Silent Hill that we've had in a very long time. Obviously, it's not a remake. It's not an old game like Silent Hill 2 was. It's something fresh. It's something new. Very weird trailer. What did you think of Silent Hill F?
Yeah, I thought that the visuals were incredible, and I did take a bit of pause when they announced the writer. I looked up what he'd done, and he'd done a lot of visual novels before, and I thought, oh, is it just going to be a visual novel? And I was sort of a bit wary, but since then, I think I've rewatched it and read some things that have said like this is like a brand new Silent Hill game. I think it looks really interesting, and based on everything else that I saw from that stream, which is sort of probably my biggest and the movie, my biggest Silent Hill exposure I ever had in my life, that this just looked completely different. Like unlike anything that I've seen so far, but it could just be a setting. It seems to be sort of more of a Japanese setting, whereas Silent Hill very much seems like that.
That's exactly
Japanese
what
idea
it is.
Of American life.
No, that's exactly what it is. It's Silent Hill is going to Japan, whereas previously Silent Hill has always been set in America, and it's very unusual. But I was impressed with the visuals too. It's obviously just a pre-rendered trailer. And we don't know anything about it. We don't know release dates. We don't know what consoles it's coming to because Silent Hill 2 is exclusive, at least at the beginning, to PS5 and PC. But yeah, I was impressed with it. I thought it was very, very strange. Very, very strange indeed.
Very strange. But I think of all of the projects, this one seemed the most interesting to me, I guess. Just because it probably because we know so little about it, but also enough that I'm not put off, Whereas some of these other games that they mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, that's not my kind of game, or that's not for me. But this very much still could be for me, and it could be very interesting. And maybe once I play maybe once I played Silent Hill 2, the remake, I might be really excited for this one. I might charge for all the Silent Hill games. You never know.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This was the only one by Konami, right? The other ones were...
Yes. Yeah, so you had one Bloober Team, you had Annapurna one, and then you had one by the team that made... one of the teams was the Dead by Daylight team, and that was sort of the interactive live stream game.
So that's Townfall, right?
No, there's another one. There's
another one.
So there was another game that there was the guy sat there and he spoke worse, or his English speaking was worse than the non-native English speaker.
It's that multiplayer thing. Isn't it the team that also worked a little bit on Reverse, right?
Possibly. I'm not. Yeah, possibly, maybe. But it's because it's not. They didn't say it was a game specifically. They said it was like a live stream event, and you had to tune in live, and the audience could make decisions, and you would affect.
Yeah, it's Ascension.
Directly affect this thing.
Silent Hill Ascension. Is that the one?
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, so I don't think that's like a proper game. That's a live stream experience where you are involved in this storytelling thing. That's what I understood it. It might be incorrect, but that's what I understood. That's what they're saying.
That's what they're wording it as. Is a live stream experience, like a new kind of Silent Hill, an experience you haven't seen up until now. I mean, I could easily see this just being like a choose your own narrative game, like The
Yeah,
Quarry, or
I was just
something like
thinking of
that.
Bandersnatch,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
thing that
It
you
could
watch
it
and you
could
make
be
the
like that. Yeah.
decisions. Right.
I mean, I don't know if it's I don't is it I don't know if it's like if it's actually real people or if it's gonna be you control
Yeah,
something.
I don't know what the situation is. The fact that they refer to it as like a live streaming thing, and to me it sounds like almost like a TV show that you watch live and you have an interaction with somehow. Well, I don't know that much about it. But the point is, that's not made by Konami either. That's what I was going for there. But it's interesting that Konami are, to jump back to my very first point about this, it's interesting that Konami here are, they've had a lot of criticism recently for not making games. They're money grabbing, they're making pachinko games and stuff like that. They've obviously got a lot of valuable IPs, and people know that. People are like, "Where's my Castlevania? Where's my Silent Hill?" And I wonder if they've realised that, okay, look, we're not interested in making games anymore. But what I would like to be able to do is make money on our IP, and I think that's what a lot of teams should do now. Like, I would love for more for Nintendo to open up more of their IPs and take more pitches from
Yes, I
third-party
agree.
devs like Mercury Steam or whoever it was that made Cadence of Hyrule. If someone comes to you with a fresh idea, like they must have opened up to devs and said, "Look, we want to make Silent Hill games. What have you got? Come to us." Because every single time they said, "Oh, these people are really excited about it. They came to us with a great idea, a great pitch, or whatever." I think it's very interesting that this is the way they're going about it, by letting other people come to them with ideas and not them coming up with an idea and going to a team for it. At least that's what it seems like from their marketing, but I could just be falling for it.
No, I think you're probably right, and I think we'll learn more as time progresses. I mean, the final game, as we said, it was Silent Hill Townfall. Again, nothing really new about this. It's from Annapurna and the studio called No Code, who created Stories Untold and Observation, which I think were more like narrative-driven games, less focused on action, that kind of thing. So we could potentially see something similar here with Townfall. Again, it was a CGI trailer. All we saw was the little CRT handheld TV from back in the day. But I was excited about it. And the main reason I was excited about it was because it was from Annapurna, and I feel like anything those guys put out is gold. like
They're
I,
like
I
video games A24, aren't they? Where they've sort of got a stamp on them that's not so much the Devolver Digital stamp, where it's like, oh yeah, you're getting a good game, but it's like, oh, you're getting like a different experience.
yeah, it's like an
a
art
game from
house
Annapurna is
game.
going to be the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
exactly.
And I like that because everything is fresh and unique, and it's I've never had a bad experience with an Annapurna game. So I thought it was very, very unusual approach that Konami took. I think you're probably right, is that they don't want to put the cash up and stump up for making these games. But if people are
I'm sure they're probably
willing to do that and they can reap the rewards afterwards, then great.
Yeah, and I hope this is going to be a trend of theirs. I would love for some teams to get their hands on Castlevania. Maybe not Mercury Steam. I mean, to be fair, give them another go at it. They've proved they can do it with Metroid now, whereas maybe their Castlevania games from before weren't too great. Or I didn't personally get on with them too well. But I would love for blanking on. I'm really blanking today, Steve. I'm really sorry. This is not great content. But some of the teams behind things like Shadow Complex, Chair Studios, like those sort of teams that know how to make good Metroidvania games could take this dormant Castlevania IP and make something fresh with it, make something new with it.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. I mean, Konami own a bunch of stuff, right? Do they own Metal Gear, or was Kojima able to take that with them?
No, I think he couldn't, and that's why he made Death Stranding, I believe.
Yeah. So
he lost access to Silent Hill, he lost access to Metal Gear Solid, and that's why they both have been dead since then, I guess.
So Metal Gear is probably ripe for a comeback at some point as well if the Silent Hill stuff does well, which it should, right? Because Silent Hill 2 looks phenomenal. Yeah. If hopefully Bloober does a good job with it, which I think they probably will. I don't think the concerns people had with the medium were technical concerns. It was just the storytelling wasn't particularly great. It was a ham-fisted approach to mental health, that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
but I wonder how much the fact that this is built from the ground up and it is a sort of a completely different. It's not like they're taking the old game and one-to-one remaking it. They are they're Resident Evil 2ing it. They're not Crash Bandicoot remastering it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
where they have a lot more control, and I wonder if that's what's got people worried. And it's not specifically technical, but it could be. You know, they've got to remake this game from scratch. It's carrying the name, it's carrying the atmosphere, it's carrying the characters and the story, but maybe the gameplay is what people are going to be worried about. But it's all to be seen. It looked incredible from what I saw. Certainly piqued my interest.
Agreed. Yeah, and that wasn't the only survival horror franchise we saw this week as well. We obviously had the Resident Evil showcase, which showed up. Well, I mean, we knew it was coming, right? So we saw more Resident Evil 4, more about the Village Winters expansion. A demo dropped for the Winters stuff. Resident Evil 4 looks phenomenal.
What demo dropped?
There was a demo that came. I can't remember. Was it for 4 or was it for the Winters expansion?
I feel like it might have been for Reverse. If you, because
right,
otherwise I'd have played.
You could be right.
Expansion. I think it might be that you pre-ordered it, you got Reverse. I think it might be the case. Which I've already had Reverse for a long time, but it's been a year since that's supposed to have come out. So
yeah, it's also not meant to be great. The reviews are out for it, and consensus.
Really? Oh, I didn't realise that.
It's not been great. I mean, at least from what I've seen, the comments about it were just like, yeah, just don't bother. So I think you're probably right that it was the demo for Reverse, but yeah, Resident Evil 4 looks phenomenal. As someone who's not a massive fan of the original game, in fact, I actually hate the game. I feel like it ended what I felt like was the best era of Resident Evil in such a shitty way that we find out that Umbrella collapsed in a newspaper clipping, and it's just like, okay, great.
Yeah. I haven't played 4, by the way, before you... But I mean, I've played the later games, so I know that all happens. But yeah, I think I remember when Bayonetta. No, I can't remember when it was, but I remember reading that Resident Evil 4, the original version for Resident Evil 4, that was somehow more actiony than this one was, is what sort of became the beginnings of Devil May Cry. I believe. I think I remember that they sort of put together a game.
I didn't like Devil May Cry either.
Well, no, yeah, I mean that's obviously not the same sort of game at all, but you can see how I think is it Kamiya that worked on Resident Evil 4 originally? The first version of Resident Evil 4, I think Kamiya was working on. They were like, this is too much action, so they managed to rein it back, but maybe not as much as the previous games, because from what I've seen of this and what I've played of the 2 and 3 remakes, there's so much more running around, jumping around, you know.
Correct. Yeah. This
going for, you know, you're not standing still and shooting, you're running and jumping and doing all sorts of things, and yeah.
I mean, this is when it became a shooter. Prior to this, it was survival horror. This lost a lot of that. It lost all of that atmosphere, at least for me, and it wasn't a scary game anymore, which is what I loved about the original Resident Evil games. Is why I played them. I thought they were so fun, and so that thrill that you get from playing a survival horror game that you can only get while playing a survival horror game, that you're just so immersed in it. It's not like watching a movie. There's something about being on the sticks and controlling it that just feels so different to me. And Resident Evil 4 totally lost that. Like, it was like watching an action movie, and I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people, and it is obviously a phenomenal game. It's not to my taste. However, watching the remake, it looks like they've corrected a lot of the issues I have with the game. I mean, going back and playing it and having to stand still while you're shooting, it's awful.
Should have played the Wii edition, mate. Should have played it on Wii.
The Wii edition, you can move and also shoot.
Yeah, the Wii edition was like supposed to be the sort of definitive version for a while, because I'm pretty sure you could move and shoot. I might be wrong on this, actually.
I don't think you could. I don't think you can move and shoot on any Resident Evil game up until 2 Remake.
Okay, I'm gonna look this up.
But you know, I could also be wrong. But I didn't like a lot of the stuff in this. I didn't like the little shop. It was just a very different change of pace. And I'm still saddened that Code Veronica wasn't the next game that got the remake treatment, because that's the next game, and it closes out the Umbrella story. It's the final story of Umbrella, and you know, hopefully we get that at some point. 4 obviously makes a lot more financial sense. It's a huge game for Capcom, and what they showed off was such a good glimpse at the gameplay. You got a real taste of the action and the quick paced and having to run around and jump and Leon looks incredible and the environments look incredible and the characters look incredible. It looks a phenomenal game, and I'm very excited to play.
Yeah, it really looks like, because Resident Evil 2 looks incredible, Village looks incredible, 3 looked great, and I feel like they've really nailed that atmosphere. They really nailed the character models. They've really, really nailed all of that. It just feels so much more immersive and scary when it looks like that. Compared to, I guess, I would personally call like the original, like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're quite campy in a way, like the voice acting and the sort of muddier visuals. Terrible. Yeah, I'll just ask why you don't like Resident Evil 4. It's because it's all brown and grey.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. They definitely nailed that atmosphere, right?
Such a brown game. Can I just quickly jump in and say I was wrong? I would like to make a correction and an apology. You can't move and shoot. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I think I am coming on this podcast and just telling lies. And I'd like to apologise.
It's all good. I mean, that's one of the reasons I struggle to go back to the old games. I can't even play the Resident Evil remake, the one of Resident Evil and 0, because fixed camera angles and not being able to move and shoot, it's just not a game I want to play anymore.
I can't. I tried it. I did Village 3 and then downloaded Resident Evil Remake and was like, yeah, cool, let's just do it. And I thought I could do it. I really thought that I could go, oh yeah, it's a product of its time. I've played old games before. I just don't think games of that generation have aged very well, like the N64, PS1 era. And I feel like it's so. I didn't play it with the tank. I even played it with the enhancements. There was no tank controls, but you walk through a room and then all of a sudden your perspective changes. I just can't get my head around it. And I'm not used to 2 shots to down them and walk away. I kill everything. It was my issue in Scorn. It's why I didn't enjoy Scorn for a while, is because I was like, I'm going to kill everything. I was like, I've run out of ammo. They're just killing me. But the actual idea of there was just to hang back, let them move on, move past them. Which I didn't play Resident Evil until 7 came out. And in 7, I just killed everything. Like Village, kill everything, because you'd have enough ammo.
Yeah, and that's what 4 was like.
You pop the legs off, you pop the head. Yeah, which I'm looking forward to 4 for that reason. 4 was the one Resident Evil game that, because we had 3 on the PS1, and I remember Resident Evil. I want to say it was Resident Evil 2. Might be the first one. Was in space. It was the first one. Sorry, it was in space. There was an episode where they were Resident Evil, so I was aware of that. But it wasn't until 4 came out that all of my friends were playing Resident Evil and they were all talking about it and they loved it. And then 5 came out and then they sort of started to go off it a bit. So for me, 4's always been the one that I need to play 4. I need to play 4. It was like, oh, I'll get it when it comes to Switch. Oh no, it's too expensive. Oh, I'll get it on PC, but they've just done 2 remake. They might do 4 one day, and now they're doing 4, and I'm sort of now I'm ready for it. I'm ready to play it, and I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on this in March, is it, or January? One of the 2.
Yeah, I think
it's March. I think it's March 2023. Yeah, I think so. Very looking forward to getting my hands on this and enjoying this game that I have been sort of one of those sort of like all-time, almost not like Holy Grail games because I could bought it and played it any time, but one of those like I really need to play that.
It's like a big hole in your gaming history, right?
Exactly,
I've got a lot of those that I need to fill. I mean, I'm really looking forward to playing the Winters expansion when it comes out this weekend because I have not played Village, and the reason is I hate first-person games, especially Resident Evil first-person games. 7 put me off so much. Resident Evil 7 is a third-person game, and it should always be a third-person game.
I can kind of see that. I feel like I really liked what 7 did. I feel like it didn't stick the landing towards the end for me, but I really liked what 7 did, and Village nailed everything for me. I played it a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and I sort of, in my little, here's what I played this year list, I gave it a 9, because it just ticked so many boxes for me, and I really, really loved everything it did. And when I saw in the trailer the third person mode in action, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna play this again probably, because I loved 2 and I liked 3. I loved the 2 remake. And I would love to see how Village feels in that. Yes, very excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited to play Village for the first time, because I just opted not to bother because I never played 7. I'm probably not going to play 7 unless I fall in love with Village and want to go back. But being able to play in third person is really interesting, and we got some questions answered about it. The biggest one I think most people had was, how are they going to handle cutscenes? Are we finally going to see Ethan's face? And no, we're not. It goes like shifts from.
He turns his head, doesn't
he? Yeah. He turns his head, and then it like shifts in. And when you go to a cutscene, it's like a transition and ease into his perspective, and then it zooms back out, which is really, really cool. I quite like how they handled it because it saves them having to redo all of the cutscenes from a different perspective.
Yeah, I do feel like it might be a bit jarring because, in the original Village, you're walking in a door and then the control gets taken away from you and things are happening. But I feel like if you're in a sort of a third person, it feels more cinematic, and then to sort of suddenly then go into the first person might be a bit weird. But I'll have to play it to find out, because it might be absolutely fine. Because obviously a lot of the choreography and the way they designed all these cutscenes to take place, you have to sort of be in the through his eyes. I am interested in seeing how that affects the sort of the feeling of fear when something's coming at you. And I know that in 2 and 3, it's handled in a way, but I feel like Village for me was more of like that thing's coming for me, oh no, because it was right in your face. I'm just excited to see the Duke again, to be honest. I love the Duke. He's the shopkeeper in Village. He's a great guy.
I think he's probably similar to the shopkeeper in Resident Evil 4 that I don't like. I don't know why they're shops.
Much jollier, mate, let me tell you.
I think what I need Capcom to do is branch the games out into 2 genres. Keep making survival horror games, because Resident Evil 2 and 3, I think, proved that genre is great, and keep doing those. And then make the action games like Resident Evil 4 if you want to. 7 and Village are I think, are firmly in the survival horror side of things. But I think a lot of people just want to play an action game. And maybe they need to take advantage of that a little bit more.
I think that Village did a great job of balancing the two. There were, because of, I won't spoil anything for you, but having not played Resident Evil 4, a lot of Village reminded me of what I understand of Resident Evil 4 because of the sort of atmosphere and some of the characters and stuff. But also, it almost feels like a best of Resident Evil, or a best of survival horror kind of thing, but also while being an action game at the same time. There's bits of action, there's bits of running, there's bits of loads of enemies on you, there's bits of being slow and walking through, and it messes with you, and it sort of does the sort of new gen survival horror sort of stuff, which obviously is only capable with the new technologies that weren't around when Resident Evil came out. The first person stuff like Outlast and things like that. I feel like Village does such a good mix, and I think I'd be interested to see how that works in third person. I'm really excited for you to play it. Actually, I think you probably have a good time with it. I'm really me personally, having played it so recently, I'm really excited for the Rose expansion, whatever they've called that.
Winters, isn't it? Is that not? Or is that
the Winters expansion? Is the whole collection? That's the
the Rose DLC.
Mode. Yeah, the Rose. Yeah, the sort of the epilogue to the game, which I think is supposed to be quite short and sort of takes place in a lot of the same areas as Village. But I think that it'd be interesting to have, because she's got these powers and she can do different things. It'd be very interesting to see.
That's playable in third person. It's called Shadows of Rose, by the way.
That's it. That is entirely in third person. That's not even. There's no first person option for that. That's literally a new epilogue to the game in third person. I think that's probably what maybe inspired them to do Village in third person again.
Do you think they're gonna give up with the first person? You think this will be the last one?
I would like. I don't want to spoil Village for you, so I think yes. I think it's very possible that yes. I think we're going to go back to faces and characters that aren't supposed to be like avatars of ourselves. Whereas Ethan is very much in Village. He's very much. He doesn't have much conviction to himself. He's just screaming and howling the same way that you would. And you're supposed to, because it's in first person, you're supposed to feel like him. Whereas the third person games are all, Jill's a character. Leon's a character. Chris Redfield's a character. So I feel like they're probably going to go back to that for whatever they do next. I think that the Winters expansion sort of supposed to be like an end to the tale of the Winters family. I think that what we've seen here is like a Winter's era of Resident Evil, and that
Now it's
maybe
time to move on to something fresh. And
yeah, now that
I wonder what's next, because I don't think that we'll see many more remakes after 4. I don't think 5 and 6 are ready for a
they're not going to
remake.
bother.
Yeah, they're not going to
No.
bother. Maybe they'll listen to me and do a Code Veronica remake, but I'm not
That's the one
holding
I
out
keep seeing
hope.
people talk about.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I would really, really like for them to do one in the 2, 3,
I
4
would also
style.
like that, and 0, and a game that not many people have ever played, Resident Evil Survivor, which was a light gun game. That needs to come back.
Let's bring them all back.
But
Let's
that's
bring
canon.
yeah.
It like slots in after Resident Evil 3, before Resident Evil 4, or before
I hate
Code
that.
Veronica.
It's like when Kingdom Hearts did that rhythm game that's canon, and you need it to understand. Like, I don't want to play a rhythm game to understand the story of this stupid game. Make it a spin-off. I don't care. Yeah, I think that maybe that. I mean, we don't know what the story is of the Shadows of Roses yet. It could even sort of tell us the future in a way. But I feel like the fact that it's third person, the fact that it's set 16 years after Village.
Oh, that's neat.
This could be. Yeah. You'll know who Rose is quite quickly. I think the character you play as in the DLC. You'll know who she is quite quickly, so you'll sort of understand what I mean. But it seems like, by that point in the future, if this is where we currently are in Resident Evil canon, Chris is going to be too old to do anything. Leon's going to be quite old. They're all going to be 16 years, on in the future. That maybe we could see some fresh blood. We could see Rose. We could see more people like her that have been affected by the plots of the stuff that's happened in 7 and Village. Who knows? It's all up in the air, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope that you get what you want out of that expansion. Where did you play it? Because I'm not sure if I want to pick it up on Xbox, if I want to try and play it on my Steam Deck.
Yeah, I played it on Steam Deck. Well, I swapped between Steam Deck and PC. It was the first game that I because I was playing it on my Steam Deck, and then after a little while I was like, I really want to put this on the TV, and I sort of plugged it in, and I was like, what am I doing? My PC is literally attached to this TV. So I just installed it, and it was very seamless. I closed the game on Steam Deck, I opened it on the PC, didn't carry the settings over, so it worked in 4K on the TV and then 720 or 800p on the Steam Deck, and then the saves carried over. So it was a very seamless experience. So I just sort of swapped between the two, which you might find is the way to go for you. For me at the time, I had my girlfriend staying with me. She was sort of working from my house for the week. And as I was sort of still looking for work, I could just sort of be in any room at the house playing Resident Evil, and it really worked for me. So I'd probably say get it on PC, because then you can do both. And also you can get it quite cheap in places. I got it cheaper. I got the game and the expansion for cheaper than the game is on sale on
it's mega cheap
PS5.
I mean, I consider it to be cheap anyway on Amazon. It's £40 for the gold edition.
Oh, is it? You could pick up if you jump between CD keys and Shop 2, you could get the full thing for like £27.
Oh, I'll have a look around. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick it up. Whether I pick it up Friday or not is another matter, because we are playing Persona 5 for a game club. So at the end of November, the first episode will be going live, the Flip Screen Games Club for Persona 5. So I'm working through the first palace on that at the moment, and that's eating up so much of my time. The other game that's eating up so much of my time, Max, is I know a game that's eating up an absolute ton of your time, which is one of my favorite games of the year, and that is Vampire Survivors. So I've got some footage up on YouTube from Baron Von Games, which was the channel that convinced me to buy this game, because I heard everyone playing Vampire Survivors. It was like the most number one played game on Steam for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know what it is. So I just Googled Vampire Survivors gameplay, and I watched it, and I was hooked. But I want to hear your impressions on it, because I think you're not as far into the game as I am.
Possibly not. I've got about 80 of the achievements, so I don't know how many you might have.
I've unlocked all of so with the coins, I've unlocked everything at this point.
Yeah, I've unlocked almost everything. I haven't done the curses.
I didn't want to do the curses for a long time, yeah. Yeah,
No,
but
yeah.
I always go for like the cursed weapons now when I go into the
Oh, okay.
runs. There's the the run with all the trees is amazing. The curse on that because they don't move, but they spawn super quick. And I had a gold rush on that
Oh,
level,
yeah.
and it was just going mental. The number of
Yeah,
coins spawning on the tree
I
on the
got
screen.
1,300 on a gold rush earlier today, but yeah, like I mean, I didn't. So like you, I was like, what is this game that everyone's talking about? I thought they might have like renamed V Rising, and that V Rising had been turned into Vampire Survivors because that was a sort of a big game at the time. It's a survival game where you're a vampire, so I just sort of made that connection.
No vampires in Vampire
And
Survivors.
yeah, very odd, very odd. And it wasn't until my friend he just messaged me and was like, "Hey man, just so you know, Vampire Survivors is going to be going up in price tomorrow. This is like a month or two ago. Going up in price tomorrow. So maybe you should buy it now while it's still cheap because it might be your kind of game." And I was like, well, "I'll just buy it." And I looked at it, I was like, "This doesn't look like my kind of game, but I'll get it."
It
Sat in my library for
went
a bit,
up
and it
by
wasn't
like
until
£2. It went up from like £3 to
yeah.
£5.
Well, I bought it at like, maybe it wasn't even £3. Yeah, it was probably about that. But I didn't even play it until a couple of weeks, or maybe even this week. Right, I booted it up and I was like, all right, let's have a go. And I was like, as a person who has a big affinity for pixel art, has done a lot of pixel art in his time, and respects pixel art and loves it, I was like, ugh, like this is ugly as hell. It's ugly as sin.
I think that's the
And
point.
yeah, a lot of that is intentional, and it's one of those things that you have to. I think the whole game is you have to get it to get it. You have to know that it's it's cheap, it's schlocky, it's like an old school sort of PC game where it's all just like squashed full size images they've squashed down into a sprite, But you start playing it and you're like, yeah, I think I get what's going on. You level up and you do that, and then you die and you go, well, I mean, I could probably do better than that. And then you go again, and then you unlock more things. And it reminded me, the loop kind of reminded me of Hades in a way, where in Hades, you die and you go, oh, my run's ended. But then you go, oh, I've got new stuff. Cool, let's go back and have another go.
And even more so on this, because you like unlock new characters, new weapons, and you can also go get those like permanent unlocks with the coins if you want to, which are basically like buffs. But the core gameplay really is super simple. It's move around. You have one control. It's the stick. You can't do anything else. And your weapons are firing automatically at set periods and intervals. And as you level up your weapons, you can unlock up to like, I think it's 12. Like 6 on the top row, 6 on the bottom row.
Yes, you have 6 weapons, 6 items, passive items, yeah. So items buff you up. The weapons are weapons, but also when you unlock the evolution stuff, then there's a bit more strategy involved in what you're picking and what you're leveling up, and you have to have the right weapon, and then you have to have the right thing that evolves it. You don't know what that is until you do it. So there's like a fun puzzle, and every time you do it, you only get a few coins, but you do get that the achievement pops up, and you go, yeah, I evolved it. And then some of the weapons you evolve them, then you can still keep leveling them up, and then you can sort of combine them with other things. And it's one of those. It grows. It just grows so quickly on you, and you're overwhelmed with things that you want to do. And when I first saw it and I saw 140 achievements, I was like, oh, blimey, like this is going to take a while. And where I've been away in Edinburgh recently, and sort of me and my girlfriend were trying to save some money, so we would have dinner at home, and then we might watch a film instead of sort of going out and spending any money on drinks or whatever. And she would just sit and play the sort of Happy Home Designer expansion for Animal Crossing, and I would I'll build up some Vampire Survivors. I just really racked up like loads of time in the week playing that. And I've got about 80 of the achievements in like a week, and it's really there's still loads of more I want to do, and it's just addictive. It's one of those ones like Tetris where you close your eyes after you've been playing it to go to sleep, and then you're seeing gems move in, you're seeing things move out,
And every single level feels unique and different, and there's something unique and different to do on all of them. And it's really fresh.
Yeah.
Like the gameplay feels so fresh. Have you unlocked the randomizer section yet?
Yes. Yeah, I've unlocked that a while ago. Yeah.
So like those are another thing that you've got to try and collect. I don't want to spoil that for people because like it's interesting, and like I remember telling you I got past 31 minutes finally.
Yes, which I'm still trying to. I got to 30 minutes and 30 seconds earlier, and I was like, no, I need more time. I think that what I like about that specifically is that when you unlock that. And because it doesn't give you all 140 achievements at once, at the start you might have 70 achievements that you can unlock because of the items you currently have, and it doesn't spoil things for you. So as soon as you unlock the randomizer, all of a sudden you have 10, 15 new achievements that are specifically to get characters to certain levels or survive for a certain amount of time. And what that does is it means there's a reason for you to go back and play the old levels and the old characters that you've sort of played before.
All the ones I hate, like the like, old woman with that just will move so slowly.
Yeah, or the skeleton that just throws that rubbish bone out.
Oh god, yeah.
But all of those things make you want to go back and keep playing it. A friend of mine described it. I'm assuming this is a term that is an actual term, but he says it's an engine builder where it's not like a roguelike where you're literally you're just building an engine and it just runs itself.
Like
you just
Factorio.
need to be in charge. Yeah, you're just in charge of it. I did a thing earlier. The game sort of subverts your expectations in some ways. I did a thing earlier where I did a bonus level because there was an item in there that, to get. And I ended up. It was a 15-minute level when I was just going in there to unlock something. Ended up trying to play the level anyway, and I was playing as the stupid panda bear. And I got like a really good sort of run going, and I was almost about to evolve this one weapon that I've been trying to evolve for ages. And then at 14 minutes, it sort of cut out, and it took me to like stripped all my weapons away. Instead of getting the normal end screen, I got took to somewhere else, and then I was doing something weird, and I was like, what? Then I beat it again and it cut out again, and then the game was flipped when it sort of rebooted the game.
Yeah, I know, it's so cool, isn't it? I got to that point and I was like, this is like next fucking level, this game. Like, it like took it to another tier. I was like, just when I was kind of getting bored of the game, that's when all that shit happened. And I was like, holy shit, there's so much more to this. I've not even scratched the surface on it.
I'm desperate to not look anything up. I've not looked. The only thing I've had to look up is I wrote a list today of the items, and luckily I've already unlocked all of the items, so I didn't feel too bad looking that up to write a guide for it. But I don't, I'd like the discovery. It really reminds me. I guess it's what they're going for is of the old school games where you unlock something and you're like, what does that do? And it's all about experimentation. Again, like we spoke at the start of the show, I like to experiment with things and see what works and what doesn't work, and yeah, I've been really sort of enjoying that aspect of it. There's so much Castlevania in this that it almost feels like it should be a Castlevania game. There's just so much in here, like the fact that you use a whip, the fact that you throw the sort of the bottles, the
Santa water
across. Yes, yeah. Like all of the names are weird as well. Like the candelabra being the candelabrador. Like it's just odd.
I know. So even the enemies, some of the enemies are really weird. Like the ones in the library are really bizarre. Like,
yeah. Or the milk ghost or whatever, the dairy ghost. Like it's an odd, fun game. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's not got a single vampire. It sort of reminds me. It's called Vampire Survivors. You boot up the game, there's a vampire on the thing. It sort of reminds me of like the opposite of when the Mega Man developers or the Mega Man artist was probably given a brief description of Mega Man. So when he went and designed the box art for the original Mega Man that just looks nothing like Mega Man at all. It's sort of like the opposite of that, where they've gone, oh, this game's called Vampire Survivors, and here's the vampire on the front box, and they've gone, cool, we're not going to put a single vampire in this.
Yeah. And I bet people are hunting for it, right? Because you go to the coffins, and you're like, is there going to be a vampire in here? But no, there's no vampires in the game.
There's no vampire in there. Yeah, a lot of references. I think, there's some of the enemies are sort of almost ripped straight out of Castlevania in a way, like some of the weapons. It's just like a glorious homage to like that sort of style of horror game, because it's not a horror game, is it? It's set in a world of vampires, and there's like barbarians. Yeah, that's probably better. Yeah, there's like vampires, and there's not vampires, sorry, don't mind I said that. There's barbarians hunting vampires, not hunting vampires. You know what I'm trying to say, right? There's barbarians, they've got whips, there's skeletons, and it's just a great Halloween game. It's a great sort of game to be playing in October, even though the game's been out for almost a year. December it came out, I think. So
yeah, I mean, it's only just got to 1.0 now, so it's up for Game of the Year discussion. At least I think so, because it's finally got to a stable release, and this is firmly up there as one of my favorite games I played this year. So I'm really excited to play more of it and unlock everything. I think this is going to be one of those games that I do become a completionist on, which is rare for me. I never want to. The fact that 1.0 has now added check marks for every single character finishing every single map.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go through all of them now and just tick them all off.
All again, yeah. I think that this game being up for Game of the Year discussion, not specifically for you, but I think just in general, is going to be the hardest sell for the non-believers, because it's one of those games you have to play to understand, and you have to play a couple of times to understand, and you have to get it. And I feel like it's one of those games that you can't get from just looking at it or watching it. You need to have it explained to you. You need to try it. I'm shocked that it's had the popularity it has. But I'm glad it has, because then I got to play it. But so far, not a single person that I've mentioned it to or has seen me play it has had any interest in it. They always see me 10 minutes into a run when things are insane, and I know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of like, I've got a load of weapons that I'm just sort of clearing things out.
And
but
you're
to them, they're
pausing
like,
just at the
"What's
right
point?"
moment because you're in the rhythm of, I know my weapons are going to shoot, and then I can walk through, and then my weapons are going to shoot, and I can kind of walk through the sea of enemies that are coming at me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love the game.
Yeah. I'm on one hand, I'm looking forward. I'm glad that it's finally released and that we have like a 1.0 version that is complete. But I am also worried that it's going to be like the Hades style of early access, where when they finished Hades, they never added anything else to it. There's never been a single update to Hades.
I could see that.
Which would be great, but I do feel like it's one of those games that I'd like them to do more. I'd like them to do more weapons, and obviously
I want more levels more than anything.
Yeah, some of the levels are quite interesting. I like, you think they're all going to be the same big sprawling, like the first level, the sort of the foresty, fieldy thing, and then suddenly you've got a level that's just going horizontal. You've got one that's just going vertical.
And the horizontal one can be really tricky because some in the big sprawling ones you can escape like through multiple routes, but on the ones where you're like restricted into a corridor, there's ones where it's like a grid. It's like there's lots of things around. Yeah,
the dairy factory.
Absolute pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's going to be one to watch. I think we're going to see what happens towards the end of the year with what people talk about.
Yeah, I know you had another game on your list, but I'm gonna pause on that and we'll talk about it on the Steam Deck podcast. I think where we can talk about it because we're getting long in the tooth here. But thank you for joining me, Max. This has been great. Let everyone know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, so the best place to find me is Twitter, at Max Wright. You'll also probably see my writing appear in various places, Attack of the Fanboy at the moment. So, yeah, there.
Awesome.
And tomorrow on the Steam Deck podcast as well.
And on the Steam Deck podcast, yeah, which I'm looking forward to. Got a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of things revealed this week.
Yes.
So that should be a fun
breaking news from you as well.
Indeed there was. Yeah. We shall talk about that over there on the Steam Deck podcast. Also check out Nintendo Noise if you haven't already. We spoke about our favorite games to play this time of year. More about the Bayonetta 3 drama and a bunch of other things that's worth checking out. That was a great episode with Chewie and Sierra. But yeah, I've been Steve. This has been Max, and we shall see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.